It's hard to believe, but we've reached 1 year of creating content for the Elden Lore series. 67 scripts written, audio files recorded, pieces of art created, episodes released, diving into lore topics across the lands between. When we asked our audience what they wanted to see to celebrate 1 year of Elden Lore, we were surprised that a retrospective of the series was the poll winner. It's hard to even put into words what it's been like to work on these videos, especially since we never expected it to take off the way that it did. When Elden Ring came out, I was just an excited FromSoft fan, ready to sink my teeth into this new world. And the more I explored, the more my head swirled with the various stories being told every time I picked up a new piece of equipment. While I was playing, I did the regular rounds on YouTube, seeing what content creators had to say about the game and the stories that were being told. But the vast majority of videos were wholly focused on walkthroughs and builds. It seemed like the only stories getting any love were those of the demigods, the fingers, or the greater will. All the big players, but none of the little guys. I think what I really wanted to do with the first few episodes of Elden Lore was just try to create a coherent layout of the information related to my favorite characters. There was all of this information floating around about the Crucible Knights, but no one was putting it together into a concise breakdown. Granted, we were all lore hunting at the time, digging through the game, making new discoveries every day, but I thought it'd be fun to take a crack at doing this myself. I figured at best a couple hundred people might stumble onto my video, and maybe we could share information in the comments, spitball ideas, and learn a little more in the process. And for the first few days, that's exactly what happened. Then on the fourth day, things got crazy. If you've been with the channel for a while, you know that the Crucible Knights was our first video to really take off and launch us into YouTube's algorithm. After that, I thought, wow, this is cool, these numbers are insane. If nothing else, I create even reaches an audience again, I'll be happy knowing that this did. But of course, you all wanted to hear more from us, and with each release, we saw those subscription numbers climb. The vast majority of comments on those early videos were positive, and a good chunk of them asked us to research specific enemies from the game and break down their lore. I was blown away that so many Elden Ring players were in the same place as me with this world and wanted to learn more about the bit players and the monsters we encountered. So that was it. From that point on, I knew I wanted to create these small-scale lore dives and see how much we could all learn together through our continued conversations. So that's how we got started creating the Elden Lore series. It was really a case of being in the right place at the right time and wanting to share an experience with other people on YouTube. Our artist, Pat G, saw the potential of the series early on and started working on every video with me, which is why we have what I think are some of the best Elden Ring thumbnails on the platform. Between my scripts, our checks and balances as a channel, and Pat's artwork, I was able to create a fully realized vision of what the Elden Lore series was going to be. And thanks to every viewer who's ever clicked an episode, I have the motivation to keep digging and learning more about this ridiculously deep world and all of the players in it. Through equipment upgrades, fun seasonal experiments, polls to determine topics, and a thorough examination of how to pronounce Everjail, our first year has been an exciting, messy, incredible, stressful, beautiful ride, and I'm excited to keep it going into year 2. All thanks to you. Speaking of you, the viewers, I wanted to use this video not just to talk about our first year and how the Elden Lore series started, but also about how you all changed my mind when it comes to various areas of the lore we explored in our first year. We know that through our research alone, we're not always going to get it right. Sometimes an important piece of information slips through the cracks, or a thread can be pulled on a theory that completely unravels it. And to be honest, I'm here for it. One of the best things about our community is our ability to dig deeper and have civil conversations in the comments about our thoughts on the stories being told. So, without further ado, here are the various bits of lore you all have changed my mind on. During our video on Boc, we theorized that it was possible Boc and Raya could be siblings due to the Daedakar's Woe talisman. Our thought was that Boc's mother could have been human, and if so, the fact that Daedakar gave birth to a myriad of grotesque children could mean she was Boc's mother. You all pointed out in the comments that it's much more likely Boc's mother was a demi-human, as her prattling pate was in the shape of a demi-human, and the story of Boc seems to be connected much more closely to Kenneth Haight than anyone else. The prevailing theory is that Boc and his mother fled the castle, becoming separated at some point, which is why we find the Your Beautiful prattling pate on the corpse of a demi-human in the hermit village of Mount Gelmir. it makes sense that the corpse we find holding the pate was Boc's mother. When we dug into the Banished Knights, we were stumped as to how they ended up in crumbling Farum Azula. But thanks to the conversations in the comments, we got a better idea of how this could be possible. As many commenters pointed out, the Banished Knights likely fought under the banner of the Stormlord before their banishment. Many lore channels have explored the Stormlord and called out a connection between him and Placidu. So naturally, if the Banished Knights originally served the Stormlord, it would make sense that some of their forces were sent to Farum Azula to stand guard over the home of Dragonlord Placidu. Upon the Stormlord's defeat at the hands of Godfrey, his knights were banished, but those defending Farum Azula would have no way of knowing this happened, so they still wander the halls of its floating buildings, following orders from a lord who no longer sits on his throne. So we had a bit of a crackpot theory on the Oracle Envoys in the early days of lore hunting. That's on me, I can own that now. Our video on these elongated monsters put forward the theory that Oracle Envoys were a new form of Albinauric, and these days I can see just how silly this theory was. The Oracle Envoys are odd. They are incredibly pale, and their head wraps contain something that cries solemnly to itself. It was a reach to suggest that underneath the head wraps was the face of a second-generation Albinauric, but what really threw this theory out altogether was the fact that these enemies don't bleed silver. Albinaurics all bleed silver, and without that major detail, I should have known that they had no connection to this race outside of their pale complexion and a lack of legs. Also, they drop crab meat, so there's that. Along with owning this misstep, I wanted to call out an interesting idea many commenters pointed out about the Oracle Envoys at the Halig Tree. These monsters are said to arrive to herald a new god or age, and the obvious assumption is that they came to the Halig Tree to announce the age of Miquella's unalloyed gold. Personally, I still believe this to be the case, as there are many theories positing that while Miquella's body has left the tree, his consciousness may still reside within it. But many of our commenters believe that the Oracle Envoys are actually at the tree to announce the arrival of the Goddess of Rot. This is a strong theory, as Malenia wakes and becomes the Goddess of Rot during our battle with her. The only point against it is that the Envoys stay at the Halig Tree even after Malenia's defeat. Of course, her Aeonia is left behind and still holds some power, as we're able to use it to create Miquella's Needle, so maybe Malenia isn't quite done with us yet. In our video about the worm faces, we called out a worm face that resides in Mount Gelmir, disguised as a putrid corpse, claiming that this was a point for our theory about these creatures falling from Farum Azula and landing in different places through the lands between. You all pointed out that when you kill this worm face, it drops a larval tear, meaning this was never a worm face at all, but a silver tear. While I don't think it really changes our theory in any kind of significant way, it is an important distinction to make, and I wanted to thank you all for calling it out. I also saw a few comments suggesting that the worm faces literally grow from Deathblight, as worms can be seen spraying from our bodies when Deathblight affects us. I don't have any kind of hard evidence to prove this theory true, but I like the idea, so it's worth calling out. During our video on Malenia and Radahn, I theorized that Malenia marched on Caelid due to Radahn's attempted conquest of the lands between. We know Radahn fought Morgott and was defeated, but when he does battle with Malenia, they're on his home turf in Caelid. If Radahn were in the middle of a march for conquest, they would not have been fighting in Caelid. If anything, Radahn may have been on his way back after his defeat in Leyndell. So if Malenia wasn't trying to secure Miquella's throne by stopping Radahn's campaign, why did they fight? Thanks to our commenters, we have a couple of theories on the motivation behind this battle. First, it's possible that Malenia was marching on Caelid because she was trying to get Miquella back from Mohg. In Caelid, we find the elevator to the Eternal Cities below the lands between, so if Mohg somehow captured Miquella from under Malenia's nose, it would make sense that she would lead an army of clean-wrought knights to retrieve her brother. Unfortunately, this means moving through Radahn's territory, and as we know, these demigods are quick to violence with each other. While a simple conversation would have cleared up Malenia's presence in Radahn's domain, these two warriors instead chose to escalate into a conflict that left Caelid a rotting corpse of what it once was. Personally, I don't subscribe to this theory, because I believe the only opportunity Mohg would have had to steal Miquella from the Halig Tree would have been while Malenia was away. She is the blade of Miquella, and as such, likely only left his side when ordered to by her brother. This opens up the second theory for why Malenia would have taken her forces to Caelid. In our video on Commander Nile, we discussed the significance of the eclipse, and explored the idea that Miquella needed the eclipse to come about in order to give his brother Godwyn a true death. While we believe his motivations for this were noble and were driven from a place of love for his brother, the important note here is that the eclipse never comes. We know that Radahn was holding back the stars themselves with his gravity magic, freezing the destiny of Ranni the Witch. But what if his bulwark against the stars also made it impossible for the eclipse to come? Radahn not only stilted the destiny of his sister, but also his brother, by not allowing Miquella to give him a true death. So what if Malenia's march on Caelid was actually an order from Miquella? Defeat Radahn by any means necessary, lay waste to his armies so that we may give Godwyn the Golden a true death, and stop the spread of Deathblight across the lands between. I think this theory makes a lot of sense and better aligns with the overall story of Elden Ring. It opens up an opportunity for Mohg to abscond with Miquella, explains why the eclipse never came, and gives a solid motivation for Malenia's win-at-all-cost mentality when fighting Radahn. I guess we'll see if the new Miquella DLC sheds light on the relationship between the fiercest Empyrean and Godwyn the Golden. After all, Radahn's been defeated, so it's possible the eclipse may now come. These are the biggest examples of where you, our community, have changed our thinking on the lore of Elden Ring throughout our first year. This world continues to expand as we all gain a greater understanding of what's happening around us, and the players within the lands between. I can't believe we've been lucky enough to work on this series for as long as we have, and we hope you'll keep joining us every week through year 2 of Elden lore. I know I say it in every video, but it cannot be overstated. Thank you. You, the person watching this right now, are the reason this series is continuing into its second year. You are the reason we strive to up our production quality and provide thorough character examinations. You are the reason I can keep making these videos, and your input is vital to our community. Thank you for sticking with us, and we can't wait to see what comes next for Elden lore.